Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by saying something very simple, yet very rare. The strongest person in the room is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the one who remains calm even when the world gives them every reason to break. You see, life has a funny habit. It doesn't test us when we're prepared. It doesn't test us when we're peaceful. Life chooses the moments when we are already exhausted, already wounded, already drained, and that is when it throws another challenge. Not because life is unfair, but because life wants you to discover a version of yourself you haven't met yet. When someone hurts us, the first reaction is emotional. We snap, we cry, we overthink, we panic. And that's human. Emotions are not your enemy. Emotions were never the problem. What becomes the problem is when we allow emotions to take the driver's seat. When emotions dictate our decisions, our actions, our words, that's when we lose power. A mentally strong woman, she feels everything deeply, but she doesn't let those emotions shake her identity. A mentally strong woman doesn't say, "I don't have emotions." No, she says, "I have emotions, but my emotions don't have me." This is the real difference. Let me share something beautiful. Someone once asked a monk, "Master, what is the secret to inner peace?" The monk smiled and said, "It is not the calmness around you, but the calmness inside you that sustains your peace. And that, my friends, is emotional mastery. Because life will never become calm. People will not suddenly behave the way you want. Relationships will not magically become perfect. Situations will not pause just because your heart needs a moment. But you can learn to stay centered even when everything around you is shaking. Emotional strength doesn't mean you don't get triggered. It means you have trained your mind to pause before reacting. And that pause, that tiny sacred pause, is where your power lies. Have you noticed something? When you react instantly, you almost always regret it later. But when you take a moment, breathe, and respond with clarity, you feel proud of yourself. That is emotional mastery. It's not about suppressing emotions, it's about channeling them. Anger is not the enemy. Fear is not the enemy. Sadness is not the enemy. The real enemy is losing yourself in those emotions. Let me explain it this way. Imagine your mind is like a room filled with people. Some people are loud like anger. Some are soft like empathy. Some cry like sadness. Some whisper like intuition. And some create chaos like overthinking. Emotional mastery is not throwing everyone out of the room. That's impossible. Emotional mastery is choosing which voice you allow to speak first. When someone disrespects you, the anger inside you wants revenge. The pain inside you wants to break down. The ego wants to prove something. But your inner wisdom, it whispers, don't give someone else the remote control of your emotions. Why? Because the moment someone can make you angry, they control you. The moment someone's silence makes you insecure, they control you. The moment someone's behavior changes your peace, they control you. And when emotions control your decisions, you slowly lose your power, your dignity, your self-respect. A mentally strong woman doesn't allow that. She knows that controlling her emotions doesn't mean she is weak. It means she is wise. When someone speaks harshly, she doesn't mirror that harshness. She responds with maturity. When someone walks away, she doesn't collapse. She stands her ground. When someone tries to trigger her, She doesn't fire back. She simply smiles because she understands something most people don't. Reacting gives your power away. Responding brings your power back. And I'm not saying it's easy. We all get emotional. Even the strongest ones do. But strength is not the absence of emotion. Strength is the ability to rise above it. When a woman learns to master her emotions, everything in her life changes. Her relationships improve because she communicates instead of exploding. Her mental health improves because she stops overthinking things that don't deserve her peace. Her self-worth rises because she no longer lets temporary feelings create permanent decisions. But here's the most beautiful part. When a woman becomes emotionally stable, she becomes unpredictable in the most powerful way. People can no longer manipulate her by pulling emotional strings. They can no longer control her with silence, with attitude, with ignorance, with inconsistency. She becomes calm, grounded, and centered, and that calmness becomes her superpower. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you win every argument. It means you no longer participate in arguments that drain your soul. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you never get hurt. It means hurt no longer destroys you. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you never fall. It means you rise faster, stronger, clearer. And trust me, when you reach that stage, the same people who once shook you will wonder why they no longer have access to your emotions. Because once a woman discovers her inner strength, she cannot be controlled. She cannot be broken. She cannot be shaken. She becomes unstoppable. And that is the true beginning of becoming mentally strong. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest acts of self-love is learning to set boundaries without feeling guilty, ashamed, or apologetic. Most of us were taught to be nice, polite, accommodating, available, and endlessly understanding. But very few were taught how to protect their emotional space, their time, their energy, their mental peace. And without boundaries, even the kindest heart becomes exhausted. Let me tell you something profound. A woman who cannot set boundaries will eventually lose the connection with herself because she is too busy pleasing everyone else. We often believe that saying "yes" makes people love us more. We think that being always available makes relationships stronger. We imagine that adjusting, sacrificing, and tolerating will earn us respect. But my dear friends, in reality, the opposite happens. The more you say yes to everything, the more people assume you have no limit. The more you give without pause, the more people assume you don't need anything in return. The more you tolerate bad behavior silently, the more people believe it's acceptable. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are doors with locks. You decide who enters. You decide how long they stay. You decide what energy you allow. Boundaries are not a sign of arrogance. They are a sign of self-respect. Let me share a simple but powerful truth. If you don't teach people how to treat you, they will treat you however they like. A mentally strong woman understands that being loving and being limitless are not the same thing. She knows that kindness without boundaries turns into self-neglect. She knows that compassion without clarity turns into overgiving. And she knows that silence in the face of disrespect turns into an invitation for more disrespect. And don't misunderstand, setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you stop abandoning yourself. I once heard someone say, "I am not responsible for how people feel about my boundaries. I am responsible for protecting my peace. And that is the essence of this wisdom. You cannot control other people's reactions. Some will call you selfish when you say no. Some will call you rude when you stop tolerating disrespect. Some will call you changed when you stop allowing them to take advantage of your kindness. But their discomfort does not mean your boundary is wrong. It simply means your boundary is working. You see, in life, people get used to the way you treat them. If you are always available, they assume you'll never need rest. If you always accept disrespect, they assume you'll never speak up. If you always forgive without reflection, they assume they can repeat the same behavior. So when you finally set a boundary, it feels shocking to them. Not because it's wrong, but because it's new. Imagine a phone battery. No matter how powerful it is, if it never gets the chance to recharge, it eventually dies. You are not a machine. You are a human being with emotional, mental, and spiritual batteries that need recharging. Boundaries are your charger. Without them, you burn out. And let me tell you this, especially to my sisters listening, a woman without boundaries becomes a woman who is easily drained. But a woman with boundaries becomes a woman who is deeply respected. Because boundaries tell people, this is where my kindness ends and my self-respect begins. This is what I will accept and this is what I will not. These are my limits and they matter. Setting boundaries doesn't make you unkind. It makes you wise. It protects you from emotional exhaustion, from manipulation, from overgiving, and from being treated like an option. Sometimes the hardest boundary is with yourself. The boundary where you say, I will not lower my standards just to keep someone in my life. The boundary where you say, I will not beg for love, attention, or basic respect. The boundary where you say, I will no longer show up for people who cannot show up for me. And I know it's not easy, especially for someone who has spent years pleasing others, trying to maintain peace at the cost of their own peace, forgiving too quickly, accommodating too often. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable in the beginning, but discomfort is temporary. Peace is long-lasting. You must remember this. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries. They will appreciate your clarity. They will understand your needs. The ones who get upset are usually the ones who benefited from you having none. A boundary is not a fight. It is not a confrontation. It is simply a calm statement of your worth. I am not available for disrespect. I am not available for one-sided effort. I am not available for emotional games. I am not available for inconsistency. I am not available for situations that drain me. Say it with love. Say it with peace. Say it with clarity. And say it without apology. Because your life becomes peaceful the moment you stop giving people discount versions of your worth. When a woman sets boundaries with confidence, her energy changes. Her presence becomes stronger. Her choices become clearer. And her heart becomes safer. Not safer from love, but safer from the wrong kind of love. And trust me, when you reach that stage, you don't chase respect, you attract it. You don't fight for attention, you command it. You don't beg for peace, you create it. Because a woman with boundaries is a woman who knows her power. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share something very important. something most people learn too late in life. A relationship can survive many storms, but it cannot survive the loss of self respect. The moment you compromise your self respect for someone, you don't just lose them, you lose yourself. And once you lose yourself, even love becomes difficult. We live in a world where people often say, do anything to save the relationship. And yes, relationships require effort, sacrifice, patience, and forgiveness. But there is one thing you should never sacrifice, not even for the person you love the most, and that is your self-respect. Because self-respect is the foundation of your dignity, your identity, your strength, your emotional backbone. Without it, you become a shadow of who you truly are. Sometimes, in the name of love, we tolerate things that are unacceptable. We excuse behavior that hurts us. We justify actions that damage our peace. We shrink ourselves to make others comfortable. We stay silent when our heart wants to speak. And we allow people to cross lines they should have never come near. But let me ask you, if protecting a relationship requires you to constantly break your own heart, is that relationship truly worth protecting? Self-respect doesn't mean pride or ego. It's not arrogance. It's not stubbornness. Self-respect means recognizing your own value, even when someone else fails to see it. Self-respect means you don't allow anyone to treat you as less than what you are. Self-respect means you don't abandon yourself just to keep someone else close. There is a deep spiritual truth here. When you lose your self-respect to save a relationship, you end up losing both. You see, love is not meant to make you feel small. Love is not meant to make you beg for attention, time, or consistency. Love is not meant to make you anxious, insecure, or inferior. When a relationship becomes a place where you are constantly trying to prove your worth, that is not love. That is emotional survival. A woman who values herself, respect becomes a woman who sets the tone for how she should be treated. She doesn't allow anyone to disrespect her boundaries, her emotions, or her dignity. And the beautiful thing is, when you respect yourself deeply, others have no choice but to do the same. In every relationship, whether romantic, family, friendship, there comes a moment when you must choose: protect the relationship or protect your dignity. And the wise choice is always your dignity, because without dignity, even the relationship becomes hollow. You cannot build a healthy bond on top of shattered self-worth. Let me share a small story. A woman once asked a monk, "Why do people take advantage of me, even though I am so kind?" The monk smiled and said, "My dear, kindness without self-respect becomes an invitation for misuse. Be kind, but never at the cost of your dignity." How powerful is that? Sometimes we teach people how to treat us by what we allow. If you accept disrespect once, they think it's normal. If you forgive without accountability, they think your forgiveness is unlimited. If you silence your pain to keep the peace, they think your feelings don't matter. If you ignore your needs to make them happy, they think you have none. This is how self-respect slowly erodes. But when you say, "I deserve better," not with anger, but with clarity, something shifts. When you choose yourself, something changes within your soul. When you walk away from disrespect, your inner strength awakens. When you stop tolerating behavior that hurts you, the universe sends people who value you. When you protect your self-respect, you become magnetic, not because of arrogance, but because of authenticity. And I know, my friends, that this path is not easy. Sometimes the person you love the most is the one testing your self-respect. Sometimes the hardest thing is to stand up for yourself when your heart wants to hold on. Sometimes walking away feels painful, but staying feels degrading. But in those moments, you must remember losing someone is easier than losing yourself. Relationships built on fear, insecurity, and disrespect never last. But relationships built on self-respect, clarity, and emotional balance become unbreakable. When a woman respects herself, she doesn't need to raise her voice. She doesn't need to threaten, beg, plead, or chase. Her energy speaks for her. Her silence becomes powerful. Her absence becomes noticeable. Her value becomes undeniable. Because a woman with self-respect is not afraid of losing someone, she is afraid of losing herself. And here is the real magic. When you protect your self-respect, the wrong people leave, and the right people arrive. The ones who were meant for you respect your worth, honor your boundaries, and appreciate your presence. They don't play games with your heart. They don't make you feel replaceable. They don't confuse you. They don't make you question your value. They bring peace, not chaos. My dear friends, protect yourself, respect like it is sacred. Because it is. No relationship is worth losing your dignity. No love is worth dimming your light. No person is worth breaking your spirit. When you honor yourself, life honors you. When you choose your dignity, life rewards you. And when you refuse to settle for less, you make space for what you truly deserve. Because a woman who protects herself, respect isn't just strong, she becomes unforgettable. Ladies and gentlemen, in life, one of the greatest illusions we fall for is the idea that we must chase people to keep them. Chase their attention, chase their validation, chase their time, chase their love, chase their consistency. But the truth is, anything that is meant for you will not require you to run behind it. It will come to you naturally, peacefully, respectfully, without emotional exhaustion. A spiritually grounded woman understands this very deeply. You don't chase love. You attract it by becoming whole within yourself. Let me tell you something very important. When you chase something, you are essentially saying, I am not enough. When you chase someone, you are subconsciously saying, I need you to feel complete. When you run behind approval, you are telling your inner self, your own validation does not matter. But a woman who knows her worth does not chase. She does not beg. She does not prove herself. She does not perform for attention. She does not audition for someone's love. She simply stands in her truth, in her grace, in her strength, and life aligns itself around her. When you know who you are, you become magnetic. People feel your presence without you saying a word. They respect your silence. They value your energy. They sense your depth, and they are drawn toward you, not because you chased them, but because you became someone worth moving toward. Have you noticed how the sun never chases the earth, yet the earth faithfully revolves around it? Why? Because the sun simply shines. It does not run after anything. It radiates. And its radiance pulls everything into alignment. In the same way, when a woman radiates self-worth, the right people automatically revolve toward her. She does not need to chase. Her glow does the work. Let me explain something very profound. Chasing is rooted in fear. Attracting is rooted in abundance. When you chase, you fear losing something. When you attract, you know you bring something valuable to the table. A woman who chases often forgets her own greatness. She thinks love is outside her. She thinks validation comes from someone else. She thinks her happiness depends on another human being. And so she runs behind the person, thinking, if I stop chasing, I will lose them. But the truth is, if someone stays only because you chase them, you never had them in the first place. And here's the spiritual beauty: what is aligned with your soul will never require you to abandon your dignity. A mentally strong woman understands this. She doesn't chase someone who is unsure about her. She doesn't beg someone to choose her. She doesn't try to convince someone to see her value. She simply says, if you want to stay, stay with respect. If you want to go, the door is open. And that level of self-respect is incredibly attractive. People often ask, but then how do I attract someone? And the answer is simple: work on your inner world. When you heal your wounds, you attract healthier relationships. When you grow emotionally, you attract emotionally mature people. When you value yourself, you attract those who value you. When you learn your worth, you attract better experiences. Attraction is not about physical beauty. Attraction is about energy. Peace is attractive. Confidence is attractive. Clarity is attractive. Stability is attractive. Self-respect is attractive. A woman who knows what she wants and doesn't settle for less is incredibly attractive. And let's be honest, chasing often pushes people away. It creates pressure. It creates imbalance. It creates a dynamic where one person is always giving more than the other. But when you stop chasing and start focusing on yourself, something magical happens. You shift the energy. You move from desperation to confidence, from fear to strength, from scarcity to abundance. Imagine you are holding a beautiful flower in your hand. If you run around trying to push the flower in everyone's face, people will avoid you. But if you plant that flower, nurture it, water it, and allow it to grow, people will come on their own to admire it. The same is true for you. When you nurture yourself, your mind, your emotions, your habits, your dreams, you become a garden that attracts the right souls. You become a place where love can grow naturally, without force. When a woman knows her worth, she is not bothered by someone leaving. She believes in divine timing. She trusts that what is meant for her will find her, even if it arrives late. She knows that her value does not decrease when someone fails to see it. She understands that the universe removes people for her protection, not her punishment. And that confidence, that grace, that calmness makes her unforgettable. Because the truth is, a woman who chases looks needy, but a woman who attracts looks powerful. A woman who chases says, please pick me, but a woman who attracts says, I choose myself first. A woman who chases loses respect, but a woman who attracts gains admiration. And here's the final truth, my dear friends. The moment you stop chasing, the right people start noticing you. The moment you stop begging, respect enters your life. The moment you stop proving yourself, your worth becomes visible. The moment you focus on self-love, real love finds you. Because a woman who knows her worth does not seek attention. She commands it without saying a word. Ladies and gentlemen, motivation is a beautiful thing, but it is also a temporary guest. It comes, it inspires us for a moment, It gives us energy for a day and then it disappears. But discipline is the permanent resident of success. Motivation is the spark. Discipline is the fire that keeps burning even when the spark is gone. Most people spend their whole lives waiting for motivation. I'll start when I feel inspired. I'll change when I feel ready. I'll work on myself when I feel motivated. But my dear friends, if you wait for motivation, you will stay waiting forever. A mentally strong woman understands a simple but powerful truth. You don't rise because you are motivated. You rise because you are disciplined. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions change like the weather. One day you wake up charged, excited, ready to conquer the world. The next day, you wake up tired, disappointed, confused, or simply not in the mood. Life doesn't ask you if you're in the mood. Responsibilities don't ask. Growth doesn't ask. Your dreams don't ask. But discipline answers anyway. Discipline is the voice inside you that says, I don't feel like it, but I will do it anyway. That is strength. That is power. That is mental toughness. Let me share something with you. If you only show up when you feel motivated, you will live a very inconsistent life. But if you show up every day, regardless of your mood, your emotions, your energy, you become unstoppable. You become the kind of person people admire, respect, and even fear in a positive way, because your consistency becomes your signature. And here's the interesting part. Motivation follows discipline, not the other way around. When you take action consistently, your mind starts trusting you. Your self-confidence grows. You begin to feel motivated because you're seeing progress. But progress happens only when discipline becomes your habit, not your struggle. Imagine a student who studies only when he feels like it. Imagine a parent who takes care of their children only when inspired. Imagine a business owner who works only when they're excited. Imagine a relationship where effort comes only on good days. Such lives crumble, not because of lack of love or lack of intelligence, but because of lack of discipline. In the same way, your dreams require discipline. Your healing requires discipline. Your emotional growth, your mental strength, your self-improvement, everything requires discipline. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. A mentally strong woman chooses routines that support her growth. She doesn't rely on feelings, she relies on commitment. She doesn't wait for the perfect day, she creates it. She doesn't depend on the perfect mood. She brings discipline into every mood. Many of us think discipline is harsh, but discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. It is saying, I care enough about my future that I will not betray it today. Discipline is like brushing your teeth. You don't do it because you're motivated. You do it because you know the consequences of not doing it. And let me tell you something powerful. The moment you start keeping the promises you make to yourself, your whole life changes. When you say you'll wake up early, and you actually do, your confidence grows. When you say you'll stop entertaining toxic people, and you follow through, your self-worth rises. When you say you'll focus on your goals, and you stay consistent, your soul feels proud of you. Success is not built in grand moments. It is built in small daily, boring habits that nobody sees, but everyone admires later. Let me tell you a small story. A monk once said, The secret to inner strength is not in big achievements, but in small disciplines. People asked, "What kind of disciplines?" He said, "Waking up when you said you would, eating only what nourishes your body, speaking only what nourishes your soul, doing what you committed to, even when your mind protests." Those who master small disciplines eventually master their lives. Discipline is also freedom. It frees you from laziness, procrastination, inconsistency, low confidence, and emotional instability. It gives you a sense of control over your life. When you're disciplined, you don't rely on luck, you rely on effort. And yes, my dear friends, discipline is uncomfortable, but so is regret. The difference is that discipline builds you. Regret breaks you. A woman who is disciplined becomes a woman who is trusted by others and by herself. Her words hold weight because her actions follow. Her goals manifest because her habits align with them. Her peace deepens because she eliminates chaos through routine. Her mind becomes strong because she no longer indulges in excuses. People often ask, "How do I become disciplined?" You start small, very small. Discipline is not created by big leaps. It is created by tiny daily steps. You drink 1 extra glass of water. You walk 5 extra minutes. You stop checking your phone first thing in the morning. You read 2 pages. You meditate for 1 minute. Small steps build momentum. Momentum builds identity. And identity builds destiny. And here's the final truth: discipline is the highest form of self-love. Because when you discipline yourself, you're saying, "I deserve a better life." When you discipline your mind, you're saying, "I deserve peace." When you discipline your emotions, you're saying, "I deserve stability." When you discipline your habits, you're saying, "I deserve success." A woman whose life is guided by discipline does not need motivation. She becomes the motivation. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest tests life gives us is what we choose to do with the pain we receive. When someone hurts us, our first instinct is to return the hurt, to show them how it feels, to prove that we can also cause damage. But let me tell you something deeply spiritual. When you hurt someone back, you don't heal, you simply double the pain. You become like them, and slowly, the wound spreads instead of closing. A mentally strong woman understands that healing is far greater than revenge. Healing is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is emotional maturity. It is you choosing peace over chaos, growth over bitterness, strength over reaction. When someone betrays you, mocks you, disrespects you, leaves you without explanation, or hurts you with their words, your heart cracks open. And in that moment, you stand at a crossroads. One path says, hurt them back. The other path says, heal yourself. One path feels satisfying temporarily. The other path transforms you permanently. Revenge might give you a moment of victory, but healing gives you a lifetime of peace. Let me tell you something beautiful. The pain someone gives you is a reflection of their inner world, not yours. Hurt people hurt others. Broken people break others. Confused people confuse others. But healed people heal others. Balanced people balance others. Loving people love others. When you choose healing, you stop the cycle. Many times, we think hurting someone back will make us feel powerful. But the truth is, it drains us. It keeps us emotionally tied to them. It keeps the wound open. Healing, on the other hand, frees you. It emotionally disconnects you from the situation. It lifts your energy. It closes the chapter with grace. Healing doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. It doesn't mean you pretend nothing happened. It doesn't mean you allow them to hurt you again. No. Healing means you understand that their actions are their karma, but how you respond is yours. You see, life teaches us lessons through people. Some show us love. Some show us patience. Some show us betrayal. Some show us boundaries. Some show us what we deserve. And some show us what we should never tolerate. Every person plays a role in shaping our character, but how we respond to them shapes our destiny. When someone hurts you, sit with your pain. Listen to it. Learn from it. What is it trying to teach you? Sometimes the lesson is self-respect. Sometimes the lesson is detachment. Sometimes it's forgiveness. Sometimes it's letting go. But the lesson is always for your spiritual growth. A wise monk once said, "Your heart is not a battlefield, it is a garden. Do not plant seeds of anger in it." How profound! Because whatever you plant in your heart will grow inside you. If you plant hatred, it will consume you. If you plant healing, it will transform you. Healing begins when you stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and start asking, "Why am I allowing this to control my peace?" Healing begins when you stop replaying the hurt in your mind and start focusing on the lessons it brought. Healing begins when you stop wanting them to feel your pain and start wanting yourself to feel peace. Letting go of the desire to hurt someone back is not easy. It requires strength, inner strength, emotional strength, spiritual strength, because your ego wants revenge, but your soul wants peace. Your ego wants to win, but your soul wants to grow. And here is the truth: the universe sees everything. People may get away with hurting you, but they never escape the consequences of their actions. Just like you never escape the blessings of choosing healing. Life has a perfect balance. Karma is the accountant. It keeps track of everything. So instead of seeking revenge, allow karma to do its work and focus on your healing. Take back your power by not allowing someone else's behavior to turn you bitter. Remember, the moment you let their actions dictate your reaction, you hand over your emotional remote control. A healed woman becomes untouchable, not because she is cold, but because she is wise. She knows that peace is more valuable than pride. She knows that lessons are more valuable than revenge. She knows that her energy is too sacred to be wasted on anger. Sometimes, healing also means walking away, not to punish them, but to protect yourself, not because you don't care, but because you care about your peace more. Not because you are weak, but because you are wise enough to choose your soul over your ego. Healing doesn't happen overnight. There will be days you cry, days you remember the hurt, days you feel weak. That's okay. Healing is not a straight line, it is a slow, sacred process. But each day you choose not to hurt back, you heal a little more. Each day you choose peace over revenge, you grow a little stronger. Each day you choose emotional maturity, you rise a little higher. And one day you look back and realize something powerful. The person who hurt you no longer controls your emotions. The situation that wounded you no longer defines you. The pain that once broke you has now shaped you. And that is when you know you won.